Hello, how you guys doing? I hope you have a pleasant day. I hope you have a good evening or whenever you see this video. Well, here's another thing on the issue between a social topic about race. Let's see what this commentator has to say about this video.
Hey y'all, it's Trader Bubba. I'm going to show you this local Tennessee news video. It's about 5-6 minutes long. Please watch the whole thing because we're going to talk about it. This one hits home for me because I'm originally from Minnesota, moved to California. I work in the film industry, and I'm thinking of moving to Tennessee in the near future. So,
no Nazis, no KKK, no fascist USA.
We were there last year as anti-fascist protesters raised their voices in opposition to the annual gathering of white nationalists at Montgomery Bell State Park. The American Renaissance Conference is scheduled to return to the park in mid-November.
We have a community for white Americans who value their European ancestry.
Among the speakers is a far-right figure who's recently made headlines around the globe with his plan to create a whites-only community in northeastern Arkansas.
Of course, we're concerned about the ability of white Americans to have their own communities in the future, and I think this is a discussion that needs to happen.
Eric Orwell told me he wants to test federal fair housing laws, which is why he created a group called Return to the Land as a private membership association, in other words, a private club, with plans to create other whites-only communities.
Right now, there are a few hotspots that we're honing in on: Idaho, Tennessee, the Ozarks.
You say Tennessee?
Yeah, that's one of those hotspots.
And where in Tennessee are you looking at?
A few different locations: eastern Tennessee, central Tennessee. So I'm not going to give away specific zip codes or anything.
His website shows a map that includes the eastern part of Middle Tennessee and East Tennessee that make up Appalachia, which would include Jackson County, where Christian nationalists are also hoping to establish their own community, giving some of the same reasons Orwell gives for choosing the region.
But Appalachia in general has a lot of founding stock Americans who are very rooted to the land here. You know, people who came over more recently might not have that very deep sense of white American identity. We have to look for ways where we can securely have our own territory that is actually ours.
Presenting himself as a thoughtful person, Eric Orwell chooses his words carefully when describing his personal beliefs. How do you describe yourself? Are you a white supremacist, white nationalist, neo-Nazi, any of the above?
None of the above. I'm a white identitarian. I think that ethnic identity, racial and ethnic identity, is a big part of who you are.
While portraying himself as someone mainly interested in preserving white heritage, Orwell has developed a close relationship with the white nationalist Patriot Front, which wants to turn the U.S. into an ethno-state for whites only. What is your relationship with the Patriot Front?
I believe that they are good faith actors. I think their ambitions for seeing political change are noble, even if I don't completely agree with their strategy or perhaps ultimate objective.
But photos posted by Patriot Front show Orwell was one of the speakers recently at the group's first national conference alongside neo-Nazi Robert Rundo. This is Rundo attacking a counter-protester at a Trump rally in 2017, and here at the Patriot Front conference, that's Rundo on the left. To the right is Orwell giving the fist over heart salute.
Life, liberty, victory.
The official salute of Patriot Front. You had a post on X on September 15th that said folks are willing to call for violence but unwilling to join one of the few groups on our side that know how to organize and deploy men. Who is that group that you were referring to?
I was indirectly referring to Patriot Front.
As our News Channel 5 investigation has revealed, Patriot Front has built a compound in East Tennessee where it trains men to fight, although it claims it's just a way for them to develop themselves personally. Patriot Front does a lot of training for hand-to-hand combat. Do you think they're in a position, want to even prepare for battle for civil war?
Well, I'm not against preparing for civil war because it may happen. Not of our choosing.
iconic photo of U.S. Marshals escorting 6-year-old Ruby Bridges as she integrated a Louisiana school represents what he calls the immorality of forced integration.
And what they did was they chose one social model and said, you're all going to live this way. And it just wasn't really a democratic process.
Meaning the white people didn't get their way?
Yeah, the Democratic majority, if they don't get their way, that's undemocratic.
Thank you for joining us here at Trader Bubba's. If you love this video, hit that like button, subscribe, and leave a comment down below so we can start communicating. There is a lot to break down and go over in that video. Too much, and I'm going to simply keep it to this one simple argument. For Tennessee, this is based on 2020 census, white alone, 72.2%. More recent 2023 estimates, so these are just estimates from Beautify Data, white alone, 78.4%. Why do I bring this up? You're building whites-only communities in a state where whites make up 3/4 of the population. And the diverse community, what little there is probably all living in the cities. They're probably living in Nashville and Memphis. In fact, I know they're living in Memphis. So what the hell are you worried about? Let's look at Arkansas. So from the 2020 census data, Arkansas, white alone, 68.5%, almost as high. Recent figures from 2024, and this is from census.gov, white, 78.2%. So it's even worse in Arkansas. What are you building whites-only communities for in states where you don't have, non-white people? What's the point?
Thank you.
Doesn't that seem kind of stupid to you? What are you afraid of? And I already know the pushback argument when I say most of your not white people are living in cities. Well, yeah, that's where all the crime is. You guys are so stupid, you can't see the big picture. Where the country's constantly having to create more and more of these new laws on top of laws to make sure that we have fair hiring practices, that you're not doing racist things to keep them down. But you do. You keep them down. You keep the black community, you're going after Hispanics like I've never seen before. I didn't even know that was possible. You're keeping them down, and then you're complaining that they don't have jobs. And when people don't have jobs, and there's a high level of poverty, that leads to crime. And then you complain about it while keeping them down. You've been doing this for 70 years, pretty much. They're not going anywhere. They're American citizens. They have every right to be here, same as you. So what are you going to do? Do we help each other out, create better, safer communities by fighting poverty? Really fighting poverty, not just throwing Band-Aids and free handouts and just not helping it at all? Building white communities. Your entire state is practically a whites-only community. According to the Southern Poverty Law Center, the number of hate groups overall, and specifically white supremacy or white nationalist organizations, rose substantially in recent years.
Oh my
For
God.
instance, one report says white supremacy hate groups increased from 109 in 2022 to 165 in 2023, a 50% jump in the U.S. In Massachusetts, hate crimes, including those tied to white supremacist motivations, rose by 30% between 2021 and 2022. So why is that? What has changed in these last few years to make these hate groups feel more empowered? It probably has something to do with this. This is from 2016. This is from Trump's first go-around when he was running for president. Former KKK leader David Duke says, of course Trump voters are his voters. They feel empowered by Trump. They feel empowered by the MAGA movement. So if you're a conservative voter, but you're not MAGA like a lot of my friends and family are, they still vote conservative, although they're not huge Trump fans, you're still voting for this. agree with it. But how can the right, how can Republicans, conservatives, who are so religiously self-righteous, support this? Can you be a follower, a student of this while supporting this? I need somebody to explain that to me, because I've read this. I just opened it up to this page, by the way. I was actually trying to get to this page I marked, but it opened up to Mark 14, and there is a side note. So this is a devotional Bible, and there's a little side note here that says, not only did Jesus find good in the bad, he found purpose in the pain. Of the 98 words Jesus spoke at his arrest, 30 refer to the purpose of God. Not only did Jesus find good in the bad, he found purpose in the pain. The page I wanted to, that I'd marked here, so again, this is a devotional Bible, so before each chapter, it's got a little kind of study, thing separate from it. And the introduction for the book of Matthew states, you got to wonder what Jesus saw in Matthew. He was a tax collector. The profession hasn't been too popular in any era, but especially not in the days of Christ. Matthew heard the call and never went back. He spent the rest of his life convincing folks that the carpenter was king. Jesus gave the call and never took it back. He spent his life dying for people, like Matthew, convincing a lot of us that if he had a place for Matthew, he just might have a place for us. What does that all mean? What does that all mean? It means if you're a follower of Christ, a student of the Bible, it means there's a place for all of us here. That we are all the same. We are all of us broken. We are all of us sinners. And if you're a true follower of Christ, there's no place for this.
Good point. That's what I'm saying.
Let's dive right into it.
Can we talk about how miserable white people are for a second? Like, you know that white people are miserable, right? Like, have you ever looked a white person in the eye, even if they're like a big mental health person? You just look deep down and you're like, brother, you are not happy at all. And truly, it breaks my heart. But one reason, I think, one of the main reasons that a lot of white people, a lot of us are really unhappy and miserable is because we lack internal congruence. Now, congruence is a concept we learned early in grad school to help people heal. And congruence is basically internal alignment. Values and actions are on the same page, right? Like, we accept every part of ourselves. We feel peace, security in who we are, congruence. And no matter how hard you try, you can never find internal congruence if you're not congruent with the world around you. If you're not understanding what's real and seeing reality and affirming what's true. So like white people who deny patriarchy and capitalism's negative effect and oppression of the world and genocide that's happening around the world, like that's incongruent with reality. That is going to have an effect on us internally. Because to deny what's happening in real time, we have to deny certain parts of us, certain emotions, certain thoughts that come up. And the more we run for that, the more incongruent and separate we feel, the more dissonance that comes, the more miserable we are. And a lot of times we're not actually dealing with our own pain and our own reality because we're all suffering under capitalism and white supremacy. Like, it affects us different ways, intersectionality, but like, it affects us white people too. You don't think a stormtrooper in the fucking Star Wars movies hates his life? You don't think he hates being bossed around all the time? You don't think poor white people living in the Empire, like in a city walls, like in a Game of Thrones, like you don't think that they're miserable under it, even though they're not miserable the most? To be congruent inside, to not be miserable anymore, it takes accepting the realities of the world, seeing how those toxic systems affect us, and then moving to actually be congruent. Because deep down, humanity has goodness at its center. So yeah, white people, we're miserable because we're not congruent, because we're denying the realities of the world, and thus
Mm-hmm.
That is right. Very right. Let's continue.
My hot take of today is that white people actually have a lot of generational trauma, and we've just like normalized it as supremacy. I actually think about this a lot because when I was in my process of like unlearning white supremacy and like the things that it made me believe about myself and like the world and that just made me miserable, I realized that like white people believe this on a regular, and it must make them like really, really tortured inside. Like the other day, I made a video about how like growing up in a super white town kind of made me feel like I had to like perform like something inauthentic because I wasn't the norm, right? And this comment didn't really like make me mad or anything. Like, don't worry about it. I could really tell it was coming from a place of I genuinely do not know what's going on. But this white guy commented, he was like, "You should just be yourself. That's not healthy." No, it's not healthy. I think the whole point is that it's not healthy because like when you're like conditioned to believe in a system where one type of person is supposed to be better than all the others, obviously to enforce that system, they're gonna like project everybody that is not that standard, everybody that's not white. They're gonna project self-hatred onto them because it exists within the person that is projecting it. What I'm basically trying to say is that white supremacy can't really exist without a little bit of self-hatred from the white supremacist because why would you feel the need to create a system that enforces that you are superior if you didn't somewhere deep down inside you fear that you weren't superior or that you weren't good enough?
That's true.
All that system really does at the end of the day is create an environment where certain people feel like they need to perform a certain level of perfection to be considered like human, right? But what that does at the end of the day is it removes any value from you if you aren't showing up as perfect. And I thought about this a lot in Sinners, where like that idea of like white supremacy, especially like shown through religion, is like the vampires don't have a soul, and they need the people that are creative, that like the black people that are making music, so that they can find their soul again. Why is that? Because white supremacy stripped them of their soul. And so the result of unlearning a system like that is being able to accept yourself when other people don't like you, or when the standards in place say that you don't deserve respect or things like that. But when you are following that system, you're bound to those rules. You're bound to like other people's opinions of you and like monetary value and things like that. All these things that like at the end of the day are probably going to disappear and will eventually change. You're bound to that as a way to define your worth in the system, and that is unhealthy. That is really unhealthy. But y'all stay safe.
So we should connected it to Sinners. Anyways, guys, tell me what you all think. What do you all think? Let's have a conversation in the comment section.
Oh, you want to know how poor white Americans are treated underneath the post about white privilege? Alright, let's get into it. Poor white folks are screwed by the system too. No doubt. Poor white Americans face poverty, unemployment, crappy health care, and a failing education system. It's tough, it's brutal, and it's wrong. But guess what? You're not also dealing with systemic racism on top of all of that. White privilege doesn't mean you're living in luxury. It means that you don't have the added weight of racial discrimination. You don't have to worry about being shot by the police at a disproportionate rate for looking too suspicious. You're not getting followed around stores just because of your skin color. You're not getting your job applications thrown out because they sound too ethnic. That's the privilege right there. It's the shit you don't have to think about every damn day. Imagine being poor and then on top of that, facing a world that is rigged to suspect, ignore, and punish you based just on the color of your skin. That is what people of color have to deal with. The system is screwing everyone, but it's got an extra special screw job for people of color. So, poor white Americans are treated like crap, absolutely. But they're not getting the double whammy of poverty plus racial discrimination. That's what white privilege is. It's not a get out of jail free card. It's the absence of a second set of chains. Open your eyes and see the whole picture. The system is broken for everyone, but for some, it's downright brutal.
I'm not adding anything on that. It's plain and clear. But tell me what you all think in the comments. comment section. I just want to have a conversation. I have fun in the comment section. Let me tell you, people dipping in it. So I just want to have a conversation in the comment section. Tell me what you all think. But it was quite plain and clear.
What's wrong with white men in America today? Well, here's the top 10 states with the highest overdose rates and suicide deaths reported in 2023. At number 10 is Tennessee. With a population of over 6.9 million residents, they have an overdose rate of 22.2 per 100,000 residents. 65% of those overdoses were white males between the ages of 18 and 35. And out of the 1,222 suicide deaths reported, 1,051 of them were white. At number 9 is Utah, where they have a total population of over 3.3 million residents. They have an overdose rate of 23.4 per 100,000 residents. 90% of those overdoses were white males. And out of the 643 suicide deaths reported, 553 of them were white. At number 8 is New Mexico, where they have a total population of over 2.1 million residents. And they have an overdose rate of 25.3 per 100,000 residents. 69% of those overdoses were white males. And out of the 563 suicide deaths reported, 248 of them were white males. And number 7 is Massachusetts, where they have a total population of over 6.9 million residents, and they have an overdose rate of 25.7 per 100,000 residents. 81% of those overdoses were white males. And out of the 604 suicide deaths reported, 507 of them were white males. And number 6 is Pennsylvania, with a total population of over 12.9 million residents. They have an overdose rate of 26.3 per 100,000 residents. 63% of those overdoses were white males. And out of the 1,884 suicide deaths reported, 1,622 were white males. And number 5 is Rhode Island. With the total population of just 1.1 million residents, they have an overdose rate of 28.2 per 100,000 residents. 91% of those overdoses were white males. And out of the 117 suicide deaths reported, 98 were white. And number 4 is Ohio. With a population of over 11.7 million residents, they have an overdose rate of 29.8 per 100,000 residents. 73% of those overdoses were white males. And out of the 1,756 suicide deaths reported, 1,582 of them were white. And number 3 is Kentucky. With a total population of over 4.5 million residents, they have an overdose rate of 29.9 per 100,000 residents. 81% of those overdoses were white males. And out of the 816 suicide deaths reported, 749 of them were white. And number 2 is New Hampshire. With a total population of over 1.3 million residents, they have an overdose rate of 34.3 per 100,000 residents. And 91% of those overdoses were white males. And out of the 223 suicide deaths reported, 219 of them were white. And number 1 is West Virginia. With a total population of over 1.7 million residents, they have an overdose rate of 41.5 per 100,000 residents. 94% of those overdoses are white males. And out of the 367 suicide deaths reported, 357 of them were white. If you know somebody that's struggling with drugs and or a mental health disorder, please assist them on seeking help before it's too late.
You know, I put this on a video, and I don't understand whether it's TikTok, whether it's YouTube, or whether it's Facebook. Why is the media not covering this? Why is the media, if Trump is so concerned about, and I know he's concerned because he made it all about white males, because he's a white male and there's white males in his family. Why did he not be concerned with this? Why are they going and thinking that if they bring another group of white males here, that's going to boost that want to come and boost the population from Europe? That's not going to help the problem. These are the facts that they should be. Instead, they so focus on immigration, they focus on the blacks, they focus on the gays, they focus on this, and they're not focusing on their own backyard. So guess what's going to happen? And I bet you some of the white males in these states were fathers. How many single white females are raising single white children by themselves? But you don't hear about that. You hear about the single black women. But now you're starting to see the single white women starting to populate. These are their uncles. These are their fathers. These are their grandfathers, their sons, their nephews, their cousins. Why were they not addressed about this? Everybody's so stuck on race by looking at the other race, but don't you see, this? It's almost like it's a judgment on white males. Why they're striking out anger. People, this is what they don't see. But since this was about, so they form these enclaves like this.
We're SelectQuote, a life insurance brokerage that's been around for over 40 years. You may have heard of us before.
He thinks Hitler may have been right. He talks about preparing for civil war. Now he hopes to establish a whites-only community right here in Tennessee. Eric Orwell has already made headlines with the whites-only community he's now building in Arkansas. Tonight, as part of his ongoing Confronting Hate investigation, our chief investigative reporter Phil Williams uncovers some exclusive new details about this controversial figure and what he has planned for the volunteer state. And Phil, I understand you had some tough questions for this man.
That's right. I had questions about his plans for that whites-only community, questions about his views on Adolf Hitler and the Holocaust, questions about his ties to the white nationalist Patriot Front, and his talk of civil war, as well as questions about his upcoming appearance at a white nationalist conference right here in Middle Tennessee.
No Nazis, no KKK, no fascists, USA!
We were there last year as anti-fascist protesters raised their voices in opposition to the annual gathering of white nationalists at Montgomery Bell State Park. The American Renaissance Conference is scheduled to return to the park in mid-November.
Because we already saw that in the video. But the problem of it is they so obsessed that they so blind. They don't see it's not other people, but just white males like themselves are under the curse. They don't even see this, ladies and gentlemen, that there are white males. You know, it was on black males at one point too. The shift has been on the white population. And I don't say this out of glory or anything like this, but it's sad that it really is, because it's like people are so blind about race that they don't even see it coming. That they think that forming a community in Tennessee is going to solve the problem. But, okay, let's say you do form a community. But why is it you tend to do stuff like this?
Mayor Mondale Robinson interacts with a racist neighbor. Here it is. You're showing up like a racist right now. You're angry.
Damn, I'm glad
You're an angry Karen right now.
Facebook.
You're showing up like an angry Karen.
Well, you know what you are?
I have one.
Probably about like this.
In your mouth.
In your mama's.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yes.
That's sweet.
I went to Enfield graded school.
What does that mean?
Inboard.
What does that mean?
I learned all that.
You learned it? Oh, you learned it from the black people?
Just as
You learned it from the black people?
derogative
You
as you
think
can.
you learned this nastiness from black people? No, man. This shit is part of your culture.
It's part of yours,
are
too.
the problem.
No, I'm not.
You walked out your house because you saw me and my wife going to get a cup of coffee to be this nasty. You could have kept your nasty ass in the house. You chose to come
You
out
could have kept your nasty ass.
I want to call your attention to an earth-shattering change that's happening in our society that I know you're aware.
Again, you know, it's sad that people have to resort in doing stuff like that. You know, but this is, so I guess that's why they want to form a white town, because maybe their solution of being away from people so we don't get in the that people don't get in the conflict, that people of color, they can't adjust their reality. But this was the only issue. Shout out to
So you think
Jerry.
you know what the South really is. I grew up in Mississippi in the Delta and was in Texas a lot. I spent a lot of time in Alabama, Tennessee. Georgia to me is the best. Like, Georgia is so amazing. But y'all, I moved to South Carolina 3 months ago from Georgia. I pretty much only shop at local farms. Like, I hardly have anything that's not from a local farm. So I go to Abbott Farms and Hobo Holler Farms, and Abbott Farms is the Abbott name is a huge place here. I understand I'm in a red state. Y'all, I walked in today. They have the closest to me location closed for the season, so they have this one central location, and I went there. Y'all, I'm shook. I walked around the corner, walking through shopping, and they had Charlie Kirk shirts. I don't think I can shop here anymore.
Alright, so I'm gonna pause it right there, and I'm gonna give a preface because, by all means, I am not the biggest Charlie Clerk fan. As a matter of fact, I'm not a fan of Charlie Clerk, at all. But at the same time, I don't think that's enough to just say that the whole state of South Carolina is racist, right? And don't get me wrong, like I'm gonna show you the map. I think that's very important context, right? I mean, you got a lot of red. And you got some blue in there as well, but as a whole, they voted, very hard on the conservative side for Trump and all these different things. But as a whole, it's hard to say. Now, yes, were some of the things that he said were crazy, and maybe, and this is a 4-minute video, I'm gonna let the rest of the video play, but so far, I'm not getting what I'm looking for when we talk about, claiming that the state is racist, right? But I'm sure it is, but from right here, what we've seen, just them selling Charlie Clerk shirts, I don't think so.
And I'm so sad about it.
And one more thing I gotta add in here as well. I don't understand why it was just like idolized. And maybe it was just the movement. Maybe it was just, their version of somebody that is huge. Because just like how they idolize Trump and they sell MAGA shirts and all these different things, I guess they included Trump within this whole thing. So I personally don't understand why they're selling shirts, right? I mean, whatever the case is. But let's just let the rest of the video speak and the additional context be added.
I'm so sad about it. And I guess it's kind of like people who boycott Bud Light and Chick-fil-A and Target and stuff like that. But I just can't. I don't want to give my money to these people anymore. Because the specific quotes that they had on these t-shirts that they had made of Charlie Kirk with Charlie Kirk's signature and name, y'all, I mean, it was horrifying when you enter the state and you see this monumental Confederate flag. I mean, it is just disgusting. Mississippi has nothing on South Carolina. I had no idea until I moved here what it was really like.
Now I see where she's coming from. Yeah, so they probably had some kind of quotes. They had some kind of crazy things that were said, and maybe they were promoting certain things. And she's being censored with what the words she's choosing. Maybe she's not trying to destroy the business or whatever the case is, right? But I get exactly what she's saying. And if you're in the South, and I've lived in the South pretty much my whole life, you see the Confederate flag. You see all the different things that, that go on in the South. You have the interactions. You see the things that happen in some of these deep rural, cities, these deep rural states, all these different, you see it, and you know that it's there, right? And shout out to the creator. I gotta give credit. Her name is Ashley, right? Y'all see the numbers. I'm gonna put her name down in the description below. I get exactly what she's saying. And, overall, just to see that at a store that you shop at probably every single week, maybe every single day, or whatever the case, a store that she shops at, maybe discouraging her from going there anymore because you know the notion that comes behind it, and people, and I look at it almost in the same light now. It's crazy, it sucks to see, but I look at them almost in the same light, right? Like I look at Confederates, the Confederate flags, people who were supporting this whole system in the South, and MAGA. I look at those two things as the same entity now. I do, because it seems like a lot of the values that they have are pretty much the same, but I could be completely wrong, could be completely reaching. Anytime I see a Confederate flag, now I think of a MAGA flag. And if you ever notice, if you guys are living in and you ride by or you watch a video or you ride through the South or whatever the case is, anytime you see a Confederate flag, you almost always see a MAGA flag right below. So just pay attention and you kind of can connect the dots on that.
Mississippi's got nothing. It's the most red, most racist. I'm just mind blown. It's just so upsetting. It's so upsetting. It just really is so upsetting. Oh my God. But the difference is like people who are boycotting like Bud Light and the NFL, like it's just completely different. Like I'm boycotting racism, misogyny, stealing of our basic civil liberties and rights, and I'm all for basic human decency, and these people are the opposite. They're about stealing civil liberties and rights, and they're about racism, and they're proud. They're so proud. As you enter the state, there's a huge Confederate flag saying, "Welcome to South Carolina, we're racist." Oh my God.
And I gotta put a caveat. I'm not gonna come on this video and say that every single state, every single city, every single town in South Carolina is racist. That's not even the case. As a matter of fact, there are other towns and parts of South Carolina that are actually fine, But it depends on the part of South Carolina, or it depends on what part of state. You can name countless states: Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana. You can name whatever parts of states that you want to name. Arkansas. It goes on and on. Every part has a part that you just don't want to go to. You know what I mean? Like we can all agree.
Yeah, but I can understand where she's coming from because she's seen that most of her life. Down in being from parts of the South, maybe she was hoping that if she go to another part of the South, that maybe it'd be a little bit more different. But it's the same spirit that's down there. What's in Mississippi, what's in Arkansas, what's in Texas, what's in Missouri, what's in West Virginia, some parts of Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee, Florida, Alabama, Carolinas to Virginia. Hell, some even go up into Delaware. Same spirit. It's the same spirit of people who stood in agreement. And some of the same people are slave states. Some of them same states were Jim Crow. So I think that's what maybe from what she's probably interpreted, because that's what she saw, that's what she's seen all her life as a child, probably as a baby, till now she's an adult. That's why she says that. And it's true what he was saying, that yes, you can see it in every state. But it don't change the fact that that's why them parts of the country are up under a judgment. They're up under a curse because of all the injustice that's done down there. What is the injustice? Poverty. What is the injustice? Lack of resources in different places. And unfortunately, there's other races of people down there that have to suffer because of the past tense of what those individuals, them territories hold over that area. And some people, they say, why don't some people move out of them places? Some people, when you're traumatized, I come to understand, some people don't think that the trauma or the severity of what they form as segregation it's the norm. You know, black people and probably a few other races that they're used to it, and so some will never. They will always stay around that and be subjugated to that. Unfortunately, some would even some would be. I've even had videos that show that there are black people that celebrate the Confederate flag. Yeah, you know, I showed on the video. They are that they had that even though because there are some black Confederates. Unfortunately, yeah, there's some black people that are Confederates, and they it's because they've been mind trained that they are part of them. We all in this together, even though we're segregated. Though you stay with your type, I stay with my type, but we all together. That's probably the code down there in the South. We get along. They'll tell you that. Black people probably tell you that. White people will tell you that. But they're part of the same system. And there's some systems that don't want to go away. And that they're used to the system. But to some of us who never, we've seen prejudice in some form of segregation. But, you know, in different parts of the Midwest to probably East, some places in the East and probably West, we go through racism, but it's like we're gonna try to find a way to get out and get away from it. But then again, you might have some black people that think it's the norm there too. So I can't really say that the black and other people in the South, but you got some black people would sit up there and play like it's not so bad, even though you know it's after a while. Remember the movie Glory? And when Denzel Washington, in the one scene when he gets beat so bad that it just act like, and when he did this subordinate, he got whooped with the whooped. Then he got to the point that he couldn't yell, he couldn't cry, all he could do was just shed tears. The trauma in Black America is like that. Even in the midst of things like that. That's how strong we are. And they can't break it. And some black people in the South had that kind of strong, but they're used to going through that. It's the norm. They will even tell you when they, being in segregation town, but it was their way of norm. And you might say, well, it might have been, you said, well, I think it was so bad. It wasn't so bad, but it wouldn't have been so bad if some white people wouldn't have to made up a lie, a white person had to cause friction among another group of people. And that's the truth. That's why all that stuff started kicked off. A mis lie, like Emmett Till, to the things that happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma, to Rosewood, to the people in Georgia. Someone had to tell a lie, and that was just the norm, so they can take someone out that they just feel like. And we can't picture that. Imagine someone just feel like they come from an evil within, that think they can go across town, that the law would justify them to do something to another person and have no conscience of it. That takes some evil, and knowing that the justice system is going to be for them anyway. And it made individual courses injustice. But the reason why places like this suffered in the South, because this is what they done. What is just the norm. There's no true justice. Belongs as some people say up under Christianity. It's think the way I think, and this is what MAGA did. And people, certain people, white people who think like MAGA, that's how they think. Who believe in that. Not all, but some. It's a mindset. And so long as you can keep the blacks for centuries as a child in the mind, we will always have supremacy. If we can dumb them down we can always have supremacy. This is what this is about. There are people that want to let the past go. But but they put it back on the blacks and say, why don't the blacks won't let it go? The blacks were left for it to move on. It's the white people that want to infiltrate what their ancestors have done. You have to watch over the blacks because they're your children. Because they need to be watched. They need to be scrutinized. Because if you're a white person who has that insecurity, you can move in any part of the country you want and don't have to see a black person within 150 miles. So the question is why? Some of them have that, they have a mental illness. And they say, we have, but that's something. Because how can you not like a people so much that you have no choice that don't even have to be around them? That's the thing about it. You don't have to complain on them. And you're so mentally warped thinking that the government is going, that's the paranoia that they're going to give it to these immigrants and to the blacks and to these other people. And that's not so. Especially when it comes to black Americans. Everybody else will benefit. Black Americans know we getting up out of it. They will use people that look like us to help to benefit the other people. That's what they've been doing. But no one wants to listen to when some black American point this out. Until a white person or another person had to show them the things that here, it's not what you think. It's not what your perception of it is. It's not what your stereotype is. Well, you said, what is they afraid of? They're afraid of themselves. They're afraid, and they think that, and they don't even see the curses upon them. Like that, the curse is either upon them, they don't even see it. We're not wishing, we don't pray and wish anything on the enemy. But look at the injustice that you've done. The ones that thought like this done. The ones that think like these white nationalists do. And they think it's okay. You even have men that saying that slavery wasn't that bad. That with the black, they didn't go through that bad. They said that. This is why the judgment is on them. It's going to be more judgment coming on them. They got to reap. Remember back in 2019, the blacks warned you. 400-something years of enslavement, Jim Crow, things. Now, why has it shifted? Even though blacks are in the midst of it, why they're suffering, but why they're not suffering why we're suffering like them? Because the injustices that they put in the constitutional law, that they put in the territories. This is what they did. This is the reason why they're suffering. And they don't want to admit that. Now the plague has hit the white community. That they mock and make fun of the black community. Now it's hitting their community in areas like them states, like they're saying, in more towns. And I think that the population, there's nobody unaliving white people. They're unaliving themselves among each other. They're not having children because it's among each other. Trump won't be able to save it. The judgment is already in the land. There's nothing you can do to stop it. White supremacy, white nationalism, all that's dying. It's going straight to hell. And as they carry up under the religion of so-called Christianity, they're going down with it. They just don't know it. They don't see it. The black people have been reading the Bible. And some white people trying to tell you, stop this. But they buck up their shoulders like, no, we'll never do it. And they continue as they bring waves of violence when they get a badge, when they get waves of violence with the justice system, more judgment's gonna fall on them. You can see it now. Next week I'm gonna show you. Now it's happening to the police. Shout out to Taylor Publishing. I'm gonna show you what they've been doing. Now it's falling on their community. White. And it's gonna be single white males and single white females. The men is gonna be the same way like single black males because of the mockery. I'm telling you, it's already happening. Some already know it. Take care, everybody. See you on the next video.